So what I'm actually gonna do is have that set up correctly for next time. Because the truth is, well, I wouldn't mind getting my camera on, but here I'll show you guys in a second actually. I'll share my screen with you all. And now you should see my trading view and see if I open my camera. At this moment, you'll see my camera and then my screen side to side. And we all know that this is actually, let's be honest, really horrible, right? So I'm gonna need to set up some sort of structure with OBS. I know there's a way I can like add my camera directly on my screen and then I can just record my screen, and I have a super wide. So I don't know if you guys can see great, but if I full screen my trading view, like this is my screen. It is a super wide screen and it does mess up the recording. So I'm just gonna have to test some stuff out. It's gonna take me the weekend for sure, but I did want to give you guys a little something, right? So I'm still sharing my face here. I don't know how it is for you guys. Like, can you see both at the same time? Because I know on my Discord, it's showing up really horrible with the fact that it's just showing my screen the same size as my face, as it shouldn't be, right? So I'll figure that out for next week for sure. Kind of good? Like, do you mean it's kind of good at the moment? That'd be surprising. Oh wow. Okay, yes, because you see my face down below. Okay, so do you guys like this? Because I can figure this out, and then I just need to find a way where two things can be used at once. Alright, awesome. Well, you know what? I'll keep it running for today then, and I'll just figure out a way to also add it in the recording as well, because I can't basically get both. Right? If one application, one software is using my camera, then I can't use it on the other one. So I'll figure out a way for the future. I know on MacBook I have a very specific way, but I'm gonna mess around with it this weekend and have something more concrete for you guys. But hi, in case you had never gone in depth about, well, about my stuff pretty much in general, because you go onto my links and there's my Instagram right there, and I've never been scared of hiding my face, but I know on Twitter that's something that you rarely see. So this is what I look like, the 20-year-old day trader who you've been listening to these past few days, weeks, months for some of you. This is what I look like. So hopefully we can keep this going for the future without any issues, right? How we do today, guys, right? On these Fridays, we're usually a bit of a smaller crowd, and I like to interact a little bit more. So how are you guys feeling? How did you do today? Did you guys trade? I want to know about it. I personally took a short, and we'll talk about why as always, right? But I am curious just to see, curious to note. Me too, but stop loss. Oof. Unfortunate. Short on second macro. Exactly, Alex. That's exactly the trade I took. I didn't wait for macro. There you go. Short, lost 13 points and left. Well, you know, sometimes on a Friday, that's actually the best choice you can make of just, you know what, it's a small loss. I'm going to go and just, you know, wait for next week. Wait for better opportunity. What's the second macro? Well, it's second macro is not a specific name for it, but when he regarded the second macro, 950 to 1010 macro, second ICT macro in the New York session, which we'll talk about. Once again, this is something we go over actually quite often now. Well said, Perez. Higher than I thought and lower than I thought. Because, right, we discussed this new week opening gap right here, right? And this was a clear draw overall. And once that gap was at least traded to, right, and traded through, then you could anticipate retracement. But going all the way here and having a, what is that, 400 point retracement, I only caught 175, maybe 200 points of this move. I got out pretty early, but still very large retracement, even for a Friday. When you look at the TGIF levels, that's a little, it's inside there, but it's a little bigger, right? And let's actually put this on the right side very quickly. You'll see here a little more than a 20 to 30% retracement. You're more at 35-40% at this point in time. Were you looking here? My glass of water was blocking what you guys are saying. Were you looking for the full fill on the gap? I was not necessarily, right? We talked about this during the weekly outlook. I at least needed us to go get this. So what the levels I was looking at are these, and I'm going to leave them on the chart. I'm actually going to remove this, but these are the specific levels that I had on my chart this morning. And I also had consequent encroachment between this and this. So the midpoint pretty much, but see the midpoint of the gap is pretty much this. So why this specifically? Because there's nothing there. This is what we like to call a liquidity void. It is the extreme magnet that is going to draw price to it. And if we look at ES, same levels, which we hadn't fully filled. So this is what I was specifically looking for us to fill entirely. So it has no regard with the new week opening gap. It's really just, there is nothing there. There's a full gap in price. I need us to trade to it. So before I could look for shorts, that's what I was looking for. And if we look specifically on the day, I feel like there was nothing other than shorts to look at, right? We left a big part of the new day opening gap, which is a quite large new day opening gap, if I might add, right? This is not standard necessarily. Let me actually see how many points that is. Yeah, a 71 point gap, 0.3%. That's quite large, quite a large gap. So when I saw this gap that we barely traded to, and just thinking into consideration this candle, right, how we opened, barely went down there. And here, let's actually go in replay mode just to visualize it. Like just before New York open, what I saw is not something that closes the day on a bullish candle, right? I saw an open and I saw manipulation. So manipulation into a high, and I was framing distributions lower. That's just how I view the higher time frame candles. So for me, I was like, okay, well, the narrative makes sense. We're going to open. We left this gap open just for additional confluence. And then we're just going to trade into this gap above. And once we're ready, and on a day where you have a news event, where do you expect manipulation to occur? During the news. So when we're ready, once we're done going up, we're just going to distribute lower. So basically the whole frame of my daily bias today was based off of these. My higher time frame objective is met. We can retrace. My daily candle tells me that we should go lower. Daily power of 3 cycles, right? Pretty straightforward stuff that I use quite a bit. Also very beautiful midnight open left unmitigated before then, so it is a very clear objective, along with, of course, as always, right, what are all of these levels? Just low resistance liquidity, even there. So for me, it was a pretty clear move lower, and I was concentrating on moving lower. But when we see our 15-minute chart here, at the news, you didn't have much of a movement, right? So when we form a range with the news, what do you expect? Well, from one side of the range to the other side of the range. Very simple news framework, extremely high probability if you want to look into it. But from this, you have a move lower, right, which you can frame as manipulation, and then a short-term, of course, manipulation. And then you had a big move higher. Well, that was my last aspect of my daily manipulation. So I wasn't interested in taking any of those longs because, as I said, there is so much below that it could just dump. And that's what it did, right? Because you're engineering so much liquidity, and my daily candle tells me that it should close lower. And that's a very high success rate. If I don't have a clear level of manipulation, I cannot trust this move higher. And sometimes it goes on without me, but more often than not, and that's what I'm in, right? I'm in data, I'm in statistics, then more often than not, it's going to reverse entirely. So that's what I was concentrated on. We'll go down to the 1 minute because you still could have looked to trade along. Right? What's wrong with trading along here? Absolutely nothing. It's not because it's the daily manipulation that it means that it's going to be a bad move. But for me, as you guys can clearly see, these are my higher time frame objectives. These are met at this point in time. So yes, I can justify a long all the way up here. But as Ferez said, right, I did not expect such movement higher. Basically, from the point where we hit my final line, I was just waiting for a short, just waiting. And we'll look at it, but there was no bearish breaker in there at all. Were you looking for the full fill on the gap? Yes. Well, not the gap. So not the new week opening gap, but specifically the gap where there was no price movement at all, so the liquidity void, as ICT likes to call them. So you prefer the daily candle on the power of 3 indicator. This power of 3 indicator is not something I use on my charts while I'm trading, but it's something that I like because what does it showcase? It showcases the long-term vision, right? So all of this price movement is what we see on this higher time frame candle. And why did we go in basically in replay mode is to visualize the order of the candle. So I know that a higher time frame candle, and I'm talking specifically about the daily and sometimes the 4 hour, but I haven't used the 4 hour at all in the past few months, just not trading when there's nothing clear in the daily. But what we want to see is an open into a high or an open into a low. And that level has to be formed with some sort of SMT so that I can trust it. And then that's what I call basically a high, what did I call it last time? I had a nice name for it. Probable low of day? I'm not sure. But it's basically a high probability of forming one of the extremes of the daily candle. So I'm waiting for that sequence to occur, which you can also visualize using fractals of AMD, accumulation, manipulation, distribution. So I can frame all of this as my accumulation, and then manipulation, and then distribution lower. Now, with hindsight, this is easy to visualize. But without hindsight, it's easy to know that I understand in which order price has to form these things. And we are not going to leave a huge gap just like this. This is a huge area of interest. So if we haven't made something that could be considered a possible low of day, then I'm not interested in taking longs because I know my better trades, my larger expansion trades will be lower. So open, high, low, retrace to a close. Right? This is what I'm interested in when I talk about symmetry, when I talk about order and structure of these candles. And yes, that's why I prefer the daily candle, and I use this indicator to help me visualize it. Well taught. I appreciate that. But just getting back into it, right? We had 8:30 news. We also had 9:45 orange news that I think one of my friends, Julian, actually pointed out to me. But that wasn't interesting to me. It's Chicago PMI. If you have right statistics, I do recommend really going into the New York AM ranges when that specific news occurs. There's actually some pretty cool stuff there. And no worries, starting this Sunday, we're going to implement more statistics for free, right? So sharing more data, sharing more statistics in the Rise Trading Discord is definitely something that we're going to be looking at doing pretty much. And we're going to start that with monthly outlooks, so monthly statistical outlooks to start off. This is something I've used since October, so since I actually released the app. Every single week and every single month I actually do these outlooks with data. So as you guys can tell, I'm pretty excited to be bringing this to you guys. But we'll talk about it more on this coming Sunday. Talking about price this morning, pretty uneventful in my book. So if I'm looking for long, I'm looking for clear manipulation. To me, there was no clear manipulation. And of course, there were a bunch of manipulations lower that formed SMT. I remember something here. Yeah, so SMT right here. I don't think, yeah, you know what? It is time. It is time. I have SMT top. Let's have SMT bot and bot for bottom. There we go. Now we're getting our templates right. And now we can have this. All right. I just did SMT top. So we have some, okay, that is pissing me off. That bottom is above top. I'll fix that. But we had some clear manipulations just to get back on track, right? Where we saw that ES was diving weaker while NASDAQ was basically pushing higher, right? And just to visualize these on ES as well, I was looking at these levels specifically. So somewhere over here. So very clear manipulation. There is also SMT on the highs. And what does this tell you? When there's SMTs on both sides of the range, it's just consolidating. It is accumulating, generating liquidity, accumulating orders, however you want to call it. Truth is, it's going to be high resistance. So usually when this happens, I like to wait for a clear raid. Now that clear raid never came. That's the truth, right? So I could justify this as a nice raid due to the SMT, but there was SMT formed right after on the highs as well. So to me, there were no high probability longs here. And even after this final expansion, as I said, my main draw on liquidity has already been hit. So I'm really focused on shorts here. Now, if we're talking from a mechanical standpoint without bias, well, SMT forms breaker blocks. Right? We all know this specifically. So 930, what am I waiting for? Judas swing lower. No Judas, no Judas. Oh, that's a nice manipulation lower. Okay, I can start looking for longs. There are no bullish breakers formed right up until we trade past this candle. Now, why is this a breaker block? Because of the SMT. As we can see on ES, we look at the same exact candle. And then if I ask you, why is this a breaker block? Well, you'll say, look, low, high, lower, low, higher, high, right? We swept the low of that range to go break the high. So that's a breaker block, right? Very simple. But it's the same thing that happened here using the SMT. So the SMT tells us that since ES took out that low, I can treat NASDAQ as if it did. So this is a breaker block. Something I cover here and there, don't really remind people of too often, but definitely something I utilize in my day-to-day trading. If not, we can do like we discussed yesterday and take the entry on ES, which would have been just on this inversion fair value gap right here, which is actually a minute before we would have had our entry on NASDAQ right here with a very nice stop loss here. Let's be honest, right? So one PD array, then you have the order block, but then you have the low of the breaker block, right? Because of the SMT. So I'm never going past there. Now, if you placed it there, am I going to tell a student this is a bad setup? Well, no, there's an inversion fair value gap. That's a nice stop. But truth is, your correct mechanical stop loss is here. So in this case, we're actually not going to be pessimistic because it would be a mistake to put it lower, but I would still accept it, right? Along the day, looking for trade casually, what time frame do you hang out on? 1 minute. 1 minute, because I always have my ideas. And I've showed you guys my layout for trading, and I will again, why not? I just want to make sure that I don't have anything special on there. I shouldn't, so I guess we'll see. And I maybe have my opening and closing ranges script. Okay, it's deactivated. You guys didn't see nothing. So this is what I have, right? These are some old targets probably, but I'll destroy them. I have a few indicators that I'm currently in the process of testing out. I don't want to present them to you guys if they're not good or I just don't like them, right? But clearly in this space and time, I was looking at, well, specifically, right, news opening price at 945 here, a little sauce for the right statistics users, but I just hang on my 1 minute. And of course I have all my other time frames, but these all have specific purposes. Currently, I'm testing out T-Trade's indicator. I'm not sure yet if I like it. I've been testing it out for the last 3 months. 3 weeks, sorry. But what I like the most are the higher time frames changes in state of delivery. So if I miss a reversal, that's a very nice indication. But I use it for sessions mainly. So it's just to keep track of the bigger picture, but I'm mainly just looking at my 1 minute because I have a clear plan, right? Let me just close this and we'll look at this. So all of this time, I'm just looking at short. Personally, I did not take this long. It was a great setup, sure. A little hard to justify because of this, but after we've expanded, sure. But then what do you target? Okay, well, I'm going to use standard deviations. Now I could use the large standard deviations, which would be this, and I can use the small standard deviations from the breaker I used to enter. Now you have a clear objective right here, for example. Could even consider taking partials here as well, since it's at 2.6R. And then did we reach anything else? No, we stopped just a little above the reversal zone here and just a little below. Well, a little bit more than a little here, 20 points below this reversal zone. So you just didn't have much to utilize, honestly, at this point in time. So not the best of setups. And for myself, while I was looking on the chart, I was just waiting. And yes, I was in my 1 minute chart. Why? Because I already have my idea. So my idea is based on higher time frame charts, right? I have a full top-down analysis that allows me to create trade ideas, create frameworks that I can later look for a trade in. Okay, well, when I'm in my 1 minute chart, I'm only looking for an entry model. The more we go up, is my short idea still valid? Yes. This doesn't change a thing, because as soon as my objective has been met, I just need to wait for a bearish breaker. But today I had to wait a long time, so I pretty much spent an hour on the 1 minute chart just waiting for a bearish breaker to form. Would you consider 1003 to 1004 a bearish breaker? Let's go look at it. 1003 to 1004. So 1003, 1004. So you're saying this as a range. Yes. Yes, this is definitely a bearish breaker in this case. So actually I missed that. That's nice, I guess. So that would have been a loss here from a mechanical standpoint. Well, you would have been long once again. It's kind of hard for me because when I tell you guys from a mechanical standpoint, I mean without bias, because my bot currently doesn't trade with bias. My bot that trades this. So today, for example, my bot went long, then went short and short. Those are the trades. That would be what I would say is a good loss, right? Because that's a breaker block. And then you formed an inversion fair value gap. We formed a breaker here. Inversion fair value gap would be your first entry, or if you waited. And then order block, and then you have nothing above. Your stop would be right here. You would have gotten stopped out very quickly. That's a good loss in my book, right? It just wasn't ready to go lower yet. I'm going to be honest. I got lucky today. I missed this completely. What about 1016 to 17? If you're telling me I missed another bearish breaker, wow, that better not be this. So yes, but at this point in time, that's actually different. Because at this point in time, we're just doing some back and forth. So if I just hide my drawings real quick, there we go. What is this? Consolidation. If it wanted to go lower, it would have went lower here. But now it's diving again, and then it's inducing the lows, and then going back to induce the highs. This is not something that I'm interested in shorting, right? But let's look at it once again from a mechanical standpoint. I'm just trying to do this, please and thank you. You would have had an entry where. So this is a bearish breaker. Hopefully there's none others that I missed. Was there SMT there? Yeah, actually, good question. Let me find a reason why this is a bad trade that you would not have taken, I hope. Well, the first one, there is no SMT, so actually this we can forget, and I'm sorry to point you out like this, a big freeze, but this would not have been valid because there's no SMT. Once again, it's in line with bias though, so this can be framed as an A setup. So is it still a trade worth taking? Yes, these are the types of trade where I like to put a feeler out, but for me to justify this making a high, that honestly, that's just a hard one, right? That's a hard one. That's one where one of my students might come to me today and say, I shorted here, and I wouldn't say that was a mistake. I'd just say, unfortunate, go next, right? It's part of the game. You get a loss. I would still say this is a good loss, even if there's no SMT, because everything else was there, right? And it was aligned with your bias. Your higher time frame objective was met in the opposite direction, so you were ready to go short. 10 a.m. candle, which is that blue line you guys see, open high. You could justify that it's going to expand lower. Yeah, no, I would actually say that this is a good loss right there, even though there was an SMT. And then looking at the next one, this is very hard for me to justify, but let's look. Is there SMT? I see SMT actually right on where the breaker was formed. Very tight, but still, right? Mechanical standpoint, I don't get a say in the matter. Is it there or is it not? Not do I want it to be there or not? And then you would have looked to enter on the retracement on that fair value gap, which of course a stop at that breaker high. So you would have had another loss there. Honestly, both decent losses. Definitely can justify the first one. The second one is pushing it because, dude, you're already consolidating here. It is very clear price is not ready to move. And I see Emil in here. He's the one that's going to tell you when that happens, wait for the macro. That's all you got to do. Right? Price has already showed that it's high resistance. It's not just going to change. It needs some sort of time parameter. So wait for the macro. Distribution today was tricky. There was continuation SMT wasn't there. What do you mean continuation SMT? This is not something a term I am familiar of. Tell me about it. Come on, Faraz, don't go quiet on me now. I feel like you're 1142. What is that? Okay, 1142 is far. We're not there yet. We're gonna look at it. So counter SMT is what you're saying from the short. But we'll look at it. But basically, we're still looking here, right? This, to me, is not a loss I can justify. It's never a trade I should be taking because, once again, which is easier if we take away our drawings, this is just consolidating. So even if I don't see anything that's to the right of this, which is at the point where I'm considering taking a trade, right? Let's just do this. And let's actually put it my background color. Okay, that is awesome. Okay, there we go. That's going to be what it is. Even if I only see this to the left, I'm still thinking it's consolidating. And when it consolidates after an expansion, price continues. Price does not go from consolidation to reversal, which is actually, I think, the first ICT video ever. Question for Emil. Do you trade between the 950 and 1010 and 1050 and 1110 macro? I think his questions is, because he says sometimes, but his question seems like, do you only trade there? I'm not seeing Emil answer. Maybe he went to do something. Sorry about that, but I can pretty much answer for him. Me and Emil actually met because we were taking the same trades in somewhere in a Discord, pretty much just a small Discord of 10 people that I had personally never met, and just I would share my trades in there, and Emil would share the same trades. It happened 3 days in a row. I was like, okay, get in here. If you're taking the same trades I am, I respect you as a trader. I want you in here. But basically, he tries to only engage within those periods. I know that sometimes he'll take a trade beforehand, but more often than not, when he doesn't have a clear trade, like something that just jumps in your face, he'll wait for these macros specifically. And honestly, I haven't seen him place a trade in between the 1010 and 1050 window in such a long time. So I really think he only engages with those anymore. But maybe, contrary to popular belief, me and Emil don't trade together. I am a solo trader. I'm very hard for me to trade with other people because I just go too much into overthinking mode. And it doesn't mean that it leads to unprofitable trades, because you guys saw from the live trading, what are we? We're 3-3, and we had one loss on that FOMC one, which is actually the one that they're recording corrupted because I ran out of electricity at that time. Fucking storms. But I just don't like that. I like being in my zone. And when I'm trading, I'm fully concentrating on trading, not on other people, not on talking to other people. Maybe at some point in time I'll actually be better at this, but don't have all the experience yet. But enough rambling, right? So good loss, bad loss. This is a mistake. You know what? Let's leave it on our charts. Fuck it. Personally, I was waiting for that 1050 to 1110 macro. Because whenever I frame reversals, it's just easier for me to frame them there, because that's where it occurs at the highest probability. When we have an expansion and we're going to reverse during New York, it happens there. That's simple. And if it happens before, well, you'll get stopped out a few times along the way, which clearly is showcased here. There are no other bearish breakers along this way that I want to say I'm sure of, but now I feel like one of you guys is going to tell me, but I didn't see any bearish breakers here, right? For me, this was just consolidating. This is not a top pattern. But once we are within that macro, I can start framing reversals. We are within this 2 to 2.5, not really what I can justify as a higher time frame point of interest, but my target higher has already been met. So all I was really waiting for was time to align. Now at this point in time, there was SMT, and it's actually really weird because it's like, you look at both of them. They look like the same price action, but this is this right here. So there was some SMT. that just confuses me now that I'm looking at it with hindsight. But there was some SMT right here, which was actually right at the point of your entry, right? So right at the time of your entry, there's SMT. So we have a bearish breaker right here that just formed. Let's actually mark it out as such and bring our standard deviations in the game. So you have your breaker block, ran higher, ran lower. Now you're waiting for SMT, but you have an entry here. Is it still a good entry if you don't have SMT? Well, in this case, I'm not within any sort of higher time frame point of interest. And yeah, as we explained, even though my higher time frame target has been met already to the upside, right? So I can now frame downside trades. This wouldn't be the best if there wasn't that SMT. So I actually saw the SMT form right on that candle. So if we just mark it out here, you'll see that NASDAQ, ES, took out those highs at that time. So right at the point of your entry is where SMT was valid and where you could take your trade. From this point on, 3 PDRA stop loss rule, nothing new as always. So you have fair value gap, order block, and all the way up here to that. Now you could place your stop. We'll count this SMT as an invalidation point, right? So as a PD array, as we usually do, but just with something so tight, and right after entering, I see that even before I place my stop, I see that price has moved there. I'm much more comfortable just giving it that extra 4.5 handles of movement to the upside, which mechanically speaking, this is what would be best in this case. Looking at this, where would I target? Well, if I'm framing a reversal of the full daily candle, I'm going to need a partial objective, and then I'm going to frame a retracement before reversal. What is that? Well, it just means that I'm going to go on my intraday chart and see all of these drawings, but I don't want to remove them for the thumbnail. But if we look at this, and we can actually remove this higher time from point of interest now, but I just look at my current daily range, right? Intraday time frame, intraday charts, and I'd look at my first discount and efficiency. Well, actually, I just said intraday chart, so 15 minutes, but as you can see, it is very deep in discount, my first inefficiency, which is right here. Kind of hard to spot, but if I just make it connect to it with the magnet, right, it's right there. That's very deep in discount. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go in 5 minute and find something that is more, well, a little bit higher. And actually, looking at this, it's not much higher. Still going to utilize it, but definitely going to find a partial. So this is my retracement objective. This is where I'd look to take profit before low of day. Because if we go through this, I'm going to expect us to just run through all of these levels all the way to current low of day, which, you know what, we'll mark out because we're going to look at the risk to reward from that level. If we go back to the 1 minute, I also need to find a partial objective before reaching this level right here, which let's actually just mark it out as a target like this. There we go. Sorry, man, doing two things at the same time. Didn't see your question. I rarely do. I'm looking. Oh, there we go. Emil answering as I told you guys. From this, where would be a clear level to take profit? Well, it seems like it was just yesterday that I was showing you guys a setup just like this, actually. But we have relative equal lows, and this seems cherry-picked. It always does, right? I'm not going to lie to you guys. You know, if you've been here quite a bit, it always seems cherry-picked. But what is this? These are relative equal lows, which, as you guys know, is a more important level than anything else, aligning beautifully with the 10 a.m. open. So an opening price. Is this where I would partial? 100%. Now, if this is too cherry-picked for you, reversal range 2 to 2.5, there is liquidity within it, partial. Okay, this is where I bring the pessimism inside of it. And that's still a 2-point-something R. Personally, relative equal lows with tapping into the opening price as my narrative, right? Of we're going to sweep those lows into that price and then start a retracement. So I want a partial at this low. That just makes sense in my mind, at least. And that comes through experience. Watching the markets, watching how, well, being a specialist of NASDAQ specifically, I know how it delivers. I'm just used to seeing it. So this I know was a high probability area to look for a partial. Now, as I said, pessimistic approach, you're going to use your standard deviations. You're going to see that there's liquidity aligning with that reversal range. That's a clear area to look for partial. And if we look at the return of this, that's 2.23R. That is more than enough to look for 50% partial. And then, of course, being break even. Now, if you had a bit of a late entry, well, actually, if you had a late entry, you would have had like a better entry, an entry above. But if you had a bit of a lower entry, you could have gotten stopped out. See, that's the thing. With a mechanical framework, I know that my entry is supposed to be here, and that gives you 4.25 handles, plus or minus. That's not the best. That's not the best. So for a lot of people, that was probably a break even. For myself, I held on. I completely took my trade off at this level, right? And yes, that meant that I left a lot of upside on the table, and my full objective was, of course, current low of day in your day opening gap. But it's Friday. I don't want to spend all my day on my chart. And I'm quite happy with a almost 6R return. That's just what you'll learn, is that what if I can secure these trades instead of just holding for a home run? And I do get home runs, but I don't know. I'm just more comfortable with taking it easy and just accepting this fucking monster of a trade instead of holding all the way to, what is that? 12R, which would have been double. Right? You see it. It would have been double. But I'm not mad. That's the truth. Maybe I should be looking back at this result, but I don't know. You just get comfortable at some point. I don't need more money. I need more consistency, which will lower my stress for trades. That's just how I think personally. So you take the breaker trade before price loses the breaker area. Price, what do you mean by this? You take the breaker trade before price loses the breaker area. Do you mean leaves? Like before price leaves that area? Before it breaks away, market structure shift. Okay, so no. Market structure shift is here from a purely mechanical standpoint. Now, people might tell you, okay, well, I wanted to close through it. I wanted to expand through it. I don't require this personally. And if you did require this, well, you have an entry right here. 3PD array stop loss brings your stop here. So you also had another good trade, but you would have lost out on 1.42 compared to the 2.26 that was here, or something, 2.23. Yeah, I'm okay with the wick, 100%. I'm trading a time-based pattern. That's all we're really doing. I mean, you guys can say what you want with the ICT and algorithmic delivery. Yes, price uses specific levels at specific times, and there are very, very complex ways to predict those markets with data and statistics and just overall very complex mathematical equations. Like if you want to go in depth, ICT Concepts Kit is actually doing some awesome stuff with that at the moment. I'm definitely going to be sharing a lot about it in the Discord. And if he gets a paid indicator out there at some point, which I believe he will be, I'll get you guys a little affiliate or discount code or something so that we can do some things in Rise here. Get some giveaways going. But I really like what he's doing. That just it got me off track a little bit there because he's just been talking to me about this stuff. It's very cool stuff. Good night, Freeze. Have a good one. Always a pleasure to answer questions. But yes, just to get back into it, Ferez, for you, no, I don't require it to close through it. To me, it doesn't change a thing. Of course, in this very specific point, you could have said, oh, well, look, it didn't close through it, and we had a deep retracement, so it wasn't sure. Bullshit, right? Because sometimes it barely taps it, and then just taps right back into that fair value gap and explodes fucking 100 handles in 3 minutes. I trade based on data. I trade time-based patterns. I know that breakers during this time and this time, if they have those specific criterias, which are the rules of my model, I know they are successful. And I know that if I target these levels and these levels, my consistency just goes through the roof. That's what I know. That's what I trade. Now, we could argue about what is a real breaker and what is that? Truth is, I don't give a fuck. might be a little nicer now that you can see my face when I say that, so that you guys know I actually really mean that. I really don't care what a breaker is. This is what I utilize. I tried to give credit to the person who taught it to me, which is ICT, by calling it what he calls it. He calls it a breaker block. I'm going to call it a breaker block out of respect, just to give credit where credit is due. But I really don't give a fuck. For me, it's a time-based pattern. As long as there's SMT and there's those things, I place my stop like this. I target these specific things. I have my trades planned out. I don't need more. What you say makes a ton of sense. Thanks. I appreciate that, Perez. When I go on these rants, I never know, right? Sometimes I might just be rambling randomly. But other than that, that's the only trades I saw today. And of course, we could consider, well, what if I didn't take this short? Was there a long here? Was there a short here? First of all, you're in lunch. This is my last opportunity to look for a trade. As soon as it starts expanding away from this, my charts are closed. It is 11:30. And am I going to trade the PM session? I'm either going to trade a lunch trade during the PM session, which did not occur. Why? Because lunch was expansion. I'm not going to look for a trade here. And it's onside my distribution. We haven't yet met my objective. There's no way I'm looking for a long here. And where would I look for short? Well, you know what? We can look at it at 2 p.m. That is a weird candle. What the fuck? All right, guys. Sorry. Is that a distress? Is that... Wow. Okay. So this is the close, and this is the opening of the next candle. That is a hell of a gap to be having on a 1 minute candle. I'm sorry. That just surprised me. I wasn't looking at my charts this PM session. As I told you guys, I got fully out right here. So this is just weird. Honestly, if I was in front of my charts and I saw this, like, just get me out. I'm closing my charts. I'm calling sorcery on this shit. I've actually never seen a gap like this on NASDAQ. Like, you see this on, like, assets that don't move a lot, that aren't very volatile. That's just special. But yes, so we can talk about if you guys took a trade in the PM session, I'll gladly go over it with you. But the truth is, you should have been short from here and just holding. I personally closed here. I was satisfied. But even then, why would you be looking for a PM session trade, right? And if you took all the worst trades as well as the right trades, right? So if you took just all available setups that you could at least slightly justify, you'd be up. Well, we don't have a clear objective for this one, I'm not gonna lie. So just using standard deviations is clear, but that would have been a full take profit for me. So you're up 3.24, but then if you took the long, you would not have taken the shorts because you'd be long. So let's forget about the long and just think you lost one, you lost 2R, and then you made, let's just say to this, pretty much a break-even day. You're up 0.2R if you took profit full at your partial. Even if you just waited a little down here, all of a sudden you're in profit 1 point something R for the day. And of course, we're going to look at the best case scenario here. You went all the way down to current low of day. You're up 10R, 10.6. So a lot of stuff that can be done here. But that's the full home run, right? You'd be at least up at 5.84R, more minus those 2 R's in the morning. That's still a very good almost 4R, right? 3.84. I like to think like this. And that's actually an exercise I do a lot with just like when I back this. It's like, okay, well, what if I took all the possible losses? What if I had a 30% win rate on my setups? Would my average risk to reward cover that? And the actual answer is yes. You can be profitable with a 30% win rate trading the Rice model. So that means like you're missing a bunch of setups and like you're really fucking up. Like to have a 30% win rate trading breaker blocks, you are fucking up. Okay, and I'm sorry if that's like a moment of realization for some of you guys, but it's on you. It's not on the pattern because the pattern works more times than that. And that's, once again, brain dead. So if you're in that boat, ask me questions. You need them, I'll gladly give you the answers. But that brings me to the end of this Friday session. Wow, time goes by quickly when I do those. Don't be scared to tell me to shut the fuck up at some point, guys. Right? Like, honestly. Great job. Oh, thank you all. for being here. I appreciate that. It's nice to see a full call. And for me, yes, a full call is 9 people. I think I told you guys last time. Maybe at some point we'll have hundreds of people in here. That'd be awesome. But just the fact that I can help a few people, and I know some people are in here that don't need my help at all, but they're just here to see what I thought, you know, compared to what they did. And I appreciate you guys being in here. It's a nice chill vibe, as you guys know. And I'll definitely get my camera set up so that the recording will start recording my face as well. I think that'd just be a good thing for YouTube in general. Call me maybe. Wow, I haven't seen that in a while. That's awesome. All right, well, I wish you all the best of nights. All right, we'll see each other on Sunday. We're gonna have, as I said, I'm gonna make an announcement tomorrow, but we're gonna do the monthly outlook at the same time. First time I'm doing this, but definitely excited to do so on a very bad month historically for me, but we'll see. You guys have a great night. We'll see each other on Sunday. Take care.